This better not be some bullshit, Saxe. What is it?
Lauren Baldwin is dead. You didn't know.
All right, yes, sir. It is your boy Kevin Bourne, also known as KB the Boss from ShifterMagazine.com, and we're here with one of the stars of one of the hottest shows on television. I'm talking about Power Book 2. Originally on the original series as well, and he's one of the crossovers into the new series, and definitely one of the more controversial characters. And still loved characters. I think you're a controversial character. But yeah, we have none other than Shane Johnson here with us. Thank you for joining me.
I'm happy to be here, man. Thanks for having me, Kevin.
No problem. So let's go back to I want to get some of your background story aside from Power. I want to kind of know, like, how did you get into this? Like, I know with some people they've known ever since they were a kid, you know, they wanted to be an actor or be in this industry. Is this something that you kind of always knew you wanted to do? Like, how did you get started?
Yeah, you know, pretty much. I mean, it's kind of a weird story, but I'll try and tell it very quickly because I don't want to bore people. I grew up in a tiny, tiny little farm town in Washington State, and nobody comes from there and goes on to act. But when I was a teenager, when I was like 13, the guy that was directing the plays at the school, I've already said this publicly, so I'm just going to say it here. The guy that was directing the plays kind of was like, "Hey, this kid's great. He should be in my plays." And so he asked me to come audition for the plays, and I was like, "No, I don't want to be in your stupid play." And so this guy, here's the thing, is this guy was like molesting me. I know, that's why I was weird about saying it.
Wow.
So he was molesting me for like years during this time. And so this is a very interesting way to get into acting. So eventually I was like, you know what, I'll do the play, but I don't want to have any lines. And I was doing You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, playing Snoopy's cousin, which was name's Tumbleweed. I would just roll across the stage. And then I think because of the fact that all this other stuff was happening, and he was like, he wanted me to have more of a role. So he fired the guy, he fired like a 14-year-old kid or some shit, you know, but he fired a kid that was playing Snoopy. And he's like, "Dude, we go up in 3 days. You have to do this." And so I was Snoopy, and I didn't really have time to freak out. I mean, I was freaking out, but I didn't have time to like not say no. It was like the show must go on. So I did that, and the feeling I had from it and the response I got from it, I was like, you know, like 13 years old. I was like, okay. Now, the hard thing in my career has been, do I attribute my success to this piece of shit? You know?
Yeah.
And so that was really hard for me for a while. That took me a while to sort of process that and kind of get to where it's like, you know, I was headed down this road anyway. I was always artistic. I was always an entertainer. I always loved, more than anything, telling stories, writing stories, creating stories, you know. And so acting was, you know, if you talk to anybody that knew me back then, they're like, "Dude, you were going to be an actor no matter what." This guy just kind of intercepted it and took advantage of a situation. Mm-hmm. So anyway, so then from there, you know, I went on to, was the first guy in my family to go to a 4-year college. I got a scholarship for acting at a place called Whitman College in Walla Walla, Washington, which is also where Leela, who played Angela, went to Whitman College as well, which is weird because, again, nobody goes to that school except for like Adam West went there for some reason.
Batman?
Yeah, Batman. But, and then later on Family Guy, right? Mayor Adam West. But so and then from there, I booked my first job in London. I was studying at a place called Lambda in London. I auditioned for some movie that sounded stupid. It was like posted on the wall. It said Saving Private Ryan. And I was like, what a dumb name for a movie. But okay. So I auditioned for Saving Private Ryan and then got that and went and shot that for like, you know, 3 weeks in Ireland. And then right after that, I moved to LA, and, you know, the rest is kind of a history of not necessarily just insane success. You know, sometimes you're doing great. Sometimes you're like, oh my God, I can't get arrested. And then sometimes you're like, all right, you know, I'm paying my bills. Things are going well. And then Power, you know, sort of came along and catapulted me to a different place, which is
Definitely. Now you mentioned
I gave you like this a summation of 20, like about 30 years, 30 years, no, 34 years of my life
the Cole's Notes version.
4 minutes. Cliff's Notes, 34 years, 4 minutes.
Now you mentioned being from a small town, like, I guess you're probably the biggest success story to come out of the town. Like, is there a street there now or a statue of you in the town?
That would be funny. No, my whole family still lives up there. So, I don't even know. I don't know that it's like, I don't know that Power is that their brand for that show. I mean,
yeah, that's true. That's true.
People know that I'm an actor and people like seeing me on stuff. Like I just shot an episode of SWAT and Chicago PD and Blue Bloods. Those are the shows that people go, "Hey, I saw you on Blue Bloods." I'm like, I've been on a show for 10 years. You tell me you haven't watched that? And they're like, "Oh no, I guess I don't have stars." And I'm like, "Well, then get it. It's like $5 a month. Get it."
Yeah. So are you being typecast, or are people just giving you the cop roles? Like, what's going on?
I think,
or you just do it well. Or you do it well.
I think, listen. Are you an actor?
No, I've acted in like maybe like 2 or 3 plays in my whole life.
So you don't consider yourself an actor?
Oh no,
but you're a creative. You're creative.
Yeah. Oh, definitely, yeah.
So it's, imagine this: when you're a creative person and you have an idea when you start of what your lane is going to be. You're like, this is what I'm going to do with my life, and this is who I am. And then you start navigating. And then the world, the universe kind of goes, yeah, no, you got it wrong. This isn't your lane. You're over here. And you're like, well, I don't really want to be that. But then that's where the money is. And that's where the opportunities seem to lie for you. And so you end up finding yourself kind of veering off and going into it. And then you can either fight it or you embrace it.
Mm-hmm.
In my head, I thought I was like, like I want to be doing Marvel stuff and be a superhero and be like, rescuing women and babies and stuff like that. That's what I wanted to do with my life. And honestly, early on, I wanted to do comedy. I was like, I want to do comedy. I want to do, Robin Williams stuff or whatever. So that's where I saw myself. But when I walk into a casting office, I guess it's the thing that I am, the thing that my product is me. So I walk in the room and people go, he's an asshole. And they also go, you kind of want to hate this person immediately, but at the same time, like, he seems cool. Like, I would like to hang out with him. But that's that weird thing where a lot of my casting has been, I'm like an asshole all the time.
Yeah. It's not a bad thing. I mean, obviously you're in demand, so.
Yeah. It's fine. But like, all these shows that I'm doing, I've done like maybe just finished a movie in Atlanta, and I was playing an asshole in that. And, I mean, I'm an asshole and everything, like just a jerk, just like the person that you got. Oh my God, I want to punch him in the face.
Mm.
And I guess, like you said, it's kind of become, whether I wanted that or not, that's kind of my brand. It's how I come across. It's like, you think you're a dress shoe, but you're a running shoe.
Yeah.
People are like, I'm not wearing that to a party. I'll run in it. And that's kind of what I'm dealing with. And I'm totally okay with it. I actually, like I said, I've embraced it, and I know that that's my casting and that's my brand right now. And it'll change again. It was different when I was younger. It'll change, but for now, I feel like the more I embrace it, the more opportunities present themselves in that world, And then, listen, even on Power, I never really thought that I was going to end up like having a love interest, for instance. But they were like, hey, let's see what he does with this, And I feel like one of the most exciting things about Power for me has been Courtney from early on. Every season she's kind of like layered in another level for me to explore. And so what maybe started off as somewhat of a 2-dimensional character that was kind of bugging Angela and just kind of wanting to climb the social business ladder there, he's become really dynamic, and he's got, he has family. He almost killed Ghost. He's broken the law. He went from being like a by the book lawyer
Mhm.
to somebody that's like now he's like a spy. He's a mole. I mean, it's and he's kind of in love. It's been a lot of fun to kind of explore all these layers and have so much love and hate from the audience. I think people love to hate him.
Definitely. But by the end of the last season, you're kind of like, I actually like this guy. Like, he's actually a good guy. Like, he's trying to do the right thing. I think that character's always been trying to do the right thing. Maybe he didn't go about it the best way, but was always still, in a sense, trying to do the right thing. Had good intentions.
Yeah, I mean, early on, in Power, early on, if you really think about it, he was one of the more hated people.
Yeah.
But he was actually one of the only people that had ethics. He was like, hey, this is what I'm after. This is what I'm about. I'm doing my job. I'm trying to take the criminals down. And because he was trying to take the criminals down, people were like, and he was smart. He's kind of smarmy and sassy and stuff like that. So people like hated him. But it wasn't until I just loss after loss. I think I had like one too many L's in Power. And I think it just cracked Cooper Saxe. And he was like, you know what? I'm going to do whatever I have to do to take these guys down. And if it means I have to lie or plant a little bit of evidence or make something go away, then I'll do it. And even that, though, was about justice, because he's like, I know they're guilty.
Yeah,
I have the evidence. You see it in court all the time where people go, it's like the Bill Cosby thing right now. Whatever you think about the Bill Cosby thing is irrelevant. But just the justice side of it, which is he admitted he did stuff, right? He said, I did it. But he said, but you can't use this. You can't use this to incriminate me and to put me to jail. But this is what I did. And then they used that later on to, like, years later, somebody else came along, some DA came along and said, oh, look, he admitted it. We're going to use this. And they put Bill Cosby away. And then over time, his lawyers are like, no. There was a deal where you said you couldn't use this. So this is illegal. We're throwing it out. And so then Bill Cosby walks out of prison and goes, see, I was innocent. And it's like, no. You weren't innocent. You just got away with it.
Yeah.
And so that's what I feel like Cooper Saxe is up against, some of those same things where you're going, the audience knows these guys are guilty. They actually get to watch them commit these crimes. And so Cooper Saxe is going, I know he did this thing. I have the evidence. Yeah, but you can't use it. It's tainted. You got it from this guy, and you can't get it from that guy because of this statute or that statute. And it's just so frustrating. And so I think, ultimately you find people going, I'm going to make this stick somehow. If I have to break the law, so be it, because I want justice.
Yeah. No, I definitely hear you. Now let's talk about, because obviously 50 Cent's the kind of the brains behind the show. Like, what was your very first meeting with 50 Cent like? Do you have any interesting how I met 50 Cent story?
Well, the thing that's interesting to me about 50 Cent is that he, for me, wasn't what I was expecting him to be. I kind of thought that he was going to be this massive, larger than life kind of intimidating guy, and the reality is he's entrepreneurial. He's incredibly entrepreneurial. He's cool. He's nice. He's very giving. He's very likes to collaborate, likes to see people win. I don't know. He just is not what I was expecting. He's always been really respectful, really cool with me. And we've had he's directed, some of the stuff, which has been great to work with him on that level. And, I just think that what's cool for me is that I get to see that other side of him, because obviously his public persona is just like a shit talker.
Yeah.
And it's funny, he's kind of embraced his social brand is being an asshole, right? Like a charming, sort of silly, fun asshole, which is very similar to Cooper Saxe in a lot of ways. He's like, you're like, man, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? Like, a lot of times I see the comments on his stuff that he posts, And it's like, dude, you go too hard, man. You go too hard, because he'll just go after people and he'll call people out and he'll do his business. He'll negotiate his deals with stars publicly. And stars, I'm sure, is going, oh my God, stop it. Stop it. You know, this is stuff you're supposed to do in a boardroom, or lawyers are supposed to hash this out. And he's like, why? I've got 25 million people here watching, you know?
Yeah.
It keeps people honest. It makes people want to go, hey, just give him whatever he wants, and make this go away, you know?
Yeah. And last season you worked a lot with Method Man, you know, Clifford Smith. You guys must have spent a lot of time together. Like, what was it like working with Method Man last season?
Working with Method is the best, man. He's like, he's a great dude, and he's great on set. He's one of these guys that it's almost like I'm jealous of this, because he'll come out on set and he's just got this energy and this, I don't want to call it a showmanship, because that makes it sound like he's performing, and he's really not. He's just being himself. He's got a big personality. He brings a shit ton of energy, and he really cares about the work. And you'll see, like, when we have like courtroom scenes, we got a bunch of background artists and stuff. He comes in and he's rapping and he's messing with them, and he's like telling jokes, and he's just being, you know, himself. And he's really charming. But on the work side, I feel like he and I have just a great dynamic. And it's one of my favorite dynamics, is that we have this thing. We just kind of draw interesting, interesting perspectives out of each other, I guess. Like I feel like he and I go toe to toe, and I draw the best out of him, and he draws the best out of me. So I actually, you know, that's been one of the greatest things about Ghost for me, is working with Method Man. I just think I can't speak highly enough about him. I think he's fantastic.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely.
And I'm so happy for him winning awards, and and just like, you know, owning it. He's owning it, and he, you know, he's one of these guys, like a lot of people that are like in that echelon that he's in. They like the money. They like to work and make money. And of course he likes that too. But what I can say about him is he really cares about the work, and he really wants, and he's developing. He's okay with developing. Like a lot of people that come in and go like, I know what I'm doing. I got this. Where he'll come in and he's like in the lab. He's in the lab trying to figure it out. And so we get in the lab together, try to figure these scenes out, make something dynamic happen. And I just feel like it really elevates the work. And I think it elevates the whole show.
Mm-hmm. Did you grow up a Wu-Tang fan, like up there in small town Washington? Were you like bumping 36 Chambers and, you know, up there?
You know, that's funny. Obviously, no, not really. And, you know, it's funny because you kind of end up, you just are exposed to what you're exposed to in your community usually. And what I was interested in is like dancing. So I was like, I grew up wanting to be a dancer, actually. That's why, you know, we were talking about me being an actor. The first performing I did was breakdancing.
Wow.
And that's what I mean, the thing is back then you weren't thinking about money. I wasn't thinking about a career because I was just a kid, but I was just like, this is what I was passionate about. It's what I love doing. I wasn't like, oh, I wonder if I can be a breakdancer when I grow up. It was just what I loved doing. I loved dancing. And so that, I think, was what kind of helped catapult me into acting, because I enjoyed performing. And so the music that, you know, what is funny, because in one of their songs, you know, with Method Man and Redman, they have a song that they talk about turbo and ozone. And then they're from a Break Into, Electric Boogaloo, you know, the breakdancing movies. Mm-hmm. And so that's about as close as I get to knowing music.
That's okay.
But I've actually become, you know, as one does, you're going, oh, who am I working with? I'm, you know, like back before we started, when I found out I was working with Method Man and Mary J, I was like, well, let me go and do a little research here and not be a moron and not show up on set and go, oh, I've never heard of these people, which I had, obviously, but I wasn't like deep into their music. One of my favorite things is to go back and watch the song that they do together. Method Man and Mary Jane.
You're All I Need. Yeah.
All I Need. And watch the video.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I mean, it's over 30 years ago. I mean, they're kids. I mean, Method is a kid, and he's got his grill, and it's like on the rooftops in Brooklyn or Bronx, wherever they're at. It's like, I mean, it's so wild to see them do that, and then flash forward 30 years later, and they're on a hit TV show together. Yeah. You know, it's wild. It's really cool. It's really magical, actually. Yeah.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about, because you were on the original Power series. Now you're on book 2. Was there any difference you found in working on the 2 series? Did anything change? Any maybe the dynamics? Like any difference between working on those 2, I guess, parts or 2 branches of the universe?
Yeah, I think that the biggest dynamic shift is where are you at, by the way? I'm
in Toronto, Canada.
Oh, you're in Toronto. Okay.
Yeah. You see, thanks for pronouncing it right, by the way. You didn't pronounce the second T.
Toronto.
It's usually Toronto. It's Toronto.
The biggest dynamic shift for me is the fact that in Power, you're going back 10 years. So I'm 47. I just turned 47.
Okay.
And most of us are in that same ballpark. Like Joe Sikora's my age. Actually, he's a few months younger than me. So he's 46 still. Omari's a few years older. He's maybe like 48. 50, strangely, is like 48. No, he's like 46 or 47, which is crazy to me. I always thought he was so much older than I am, but like we're almost the same age. He's younger than Omari. And then, but my point is that we were all kind of in that age range, and we were cast 10 years ago. So we're in like our mid 30s. Right. And so that there was like an adult sort of blossoming adult sort of energy of professionals and people that were, coming up together and being on this hit show together. Like that energy was very interesting and cool to be a part of, and to be in that same zone as they were in. Now, I mean, and Leela was in that same age range too. She's a few years younger, but we're all in that same ballpark. Now on this show, like half the cast is like kids, and that brings in this whole other dynamic, which I think is vibrant and fun. It's different. It creates a very different, in a strange way, even though there's just as much violence and stuff like that, and the subject matter is just as dark, it brings a lightness to it because they're young and they're figuring it out and they're trying it. They're not like seasoned. We're watching them get seasoned in real time. They're in the process of seasoning. Whereas when we came in on Ghost and Tommy were already seasoned. They had already been in the game. These guys, we're just seeing them start the game. And that's like, we're watching, it's almost like a prequel of Power. If Tariq was James St. Patrick, right?
Yeah.
It's got that kind of feel. So it brings a very different dynamic. And it's also interesting for me as a veteran actor, journeyman actor, to be on the show with these younger kids who I love and adore, but they're just such a different energy and they're in a different world than I am. They're in the Instagram social media world, and that's they're all about fashion and gear. And I'm like, dude, I could give a shit about fashion. Like who cares about what my shirt says? And they're like, no, you need to. And I'm like, why does it matter? But they're all about fashion. They're all about, social media. They're all about that kind of stuff, which I'll be honest, I'm jealous of it a little bit, and I try to be interested in it, and then I can't find the interest level. I'm just like,
I saw Saxe's kind of hair became a little bit cooler last season, like as he started working with Method Man. I felt like there's a little different hairstyle that kind of
big time. There. And that's funny you caught that. Yeah, there's he puts me through a mini makeover where he gets me better suits and I get my hair done and stuff like that. And that was fun. And then the reality is, when I first got Cooper Saxe, they styled my hair, and I hated it. You know, I mean, I shouldn't say I hated it. I just was like, no, this isn't cool. This is like stuffy and crisp and like, you know, but I was like, dude, that's the character. That's who this character is. It kind of helped bring out this self-important kind of coiffed prick, you know, that like, that's this guy. And so I just kind of owned that and went with that for, you know, 6 seasons. And the makeover, just something as simple as changing your hairstyle significantly, you know, it went from being that coiffed crisp stuff to this short kind of like, you know, young sort of hip stuff. It really sort of changed the feel for me. It was nice. It was nice. And this is more me anyway, you know.
Yeah.
That other thing was more of a character. So yeah.
And before we go, like, what was it like seeing the progression of Michael Rainey Jr. just from, you know, obviously you see them, you know, when you guys first started working, he was like a kid. Now he's kind of like, you know, in the sense like the lead character. What was it like for you just to kind of sit back and observe his progression from when you first saw him to where he's now on the series?
Well, you know, it's funny. I think when I started working with him, he was like 11 or 12, you know, which is crazy. And honestly, he was at that point, you know, as you can imagine, he was like, oh, he's the kid on set. He's the kid on set that you don't really think too much about. You're like, oh yeah, he's good. And he's, you know, he's playing he's their kid, and there are a couple other kids. And then, I mean, if somebody asked me, hey, did you know that kid's going to have his own spinoff in 6 years? I would have been like, what are you talking about? And I'm sure he felt that way too. But to see him progress and become, you know, a young man now, and to be leading a show and to sink his teeth in more and more and start taking the work more and more seriously. You know, I think it's actually, it's really I applaud him, because, you know, a lot of actors, a lot of artists, they become adults first. And then they're like, oh, now I'm going to go work and go get this job. I've done my training. Whereas his stuff is on the job. Like, he's been working since he was like, I don't know, 10 or something. He's been in the business since he doesn't remember not being in the business, you know? And so he has, like a lot of child actors, he would have a reason to not take the work seriously and to not care. And I feel like because he can take it for granted, it's like, oh, it's just there. That's the way it is. But he's really sunk his teeth into this. And I feel like he's really, really stepping up to the challenge of leading the show. And I feel like every season he gets, you know, like 10% better and more grounded. And I can just see, I mean, I think he's going to have a huge career. And I mean, he already does, but you know what I'm saying? I think he's going to have a long career. And it's been, you know, I'm really proud of him, honestly. I mean, it's like being one of the adults around that, you know, you get to see a kid grow up, and you know, you love him and you root for him, and to see him shine and to see him do well, you know, I'm proud of him.
Definitely. And the last question, just, you know, looking forward to the next season, because the end of last season, you know, we see Cooper Saxe, you know, having a little change of heart. He's now like, you know, seemingly becoming one of the good guys, and, you know, has a kind of seemingly like a serious relationship. Without giving away too much, anything, you know, we can just expect from that character next season.
Yeah. Well, what I'd say is this, man. I like to describe it like this. Cooper Saxe was unbreakable, unflappable for a long time. He didn't really have a kryptonite. And then they introduced his family, and then he had Riley, and then he used Riley to become a mole and go and infiltrate the bad guys and you know, spy for him. And so then he had this kryptonite, because then it was like they found out that we were related, and it was this whole thing, and then that went away, and that was like, okay, so he escaped that. This relationship with Jenny Sullivan, the more he starts to care for her and the more that relationship develops and the more he wants to be loyal to her and love her and all that kind of stuff, that becomes more and more his kryptonite. Like if he didn't have her, he wouldn't really have any weaknesses, you know? And that's she's my weakness. And so I'm caught between her, which is like, I don't want to call her a rock in a hard place, but like she would be, I'm caught between, if she would be like the rock, and then the hard place would be my loyalty to Method Man and the business that we're doing. And then there's like also another hard spot, which would be this strange sort of relationship I have with Tariq, where I want to take him down. I want to enact justice on him, but at the same time, I'm beholden to him because in a way he saved my life. You know, when I walked into that club in season 6, I was there to kill James St. Patrick. And then I couldn't. And so I still wanted to be right. I still wanted to get justice. And so I went after the St. Patrick family. But then once I found out that Tariq is the one that killed Ghost, there's a thing that clicks in Cooper Saxe, I think, where he's like, this kid saved my life. And so taking him down and making him pay is harder. And in reality, I think that Cooper Saxe would like to see him turn his life around. You know, I don't think he thinks it's going to happen, but I think he's actually rooting for him to not go down the same path his father went down.
Yeah.
You know,
do you feel like Tariq is worse? Is he worse than his dad? Or on the path, I guess on the path to becoming worse than his dad?
Well, here's the thing that's interesting. What he's trying to do is be a better version of his dad. The thing that's interesting is these kids on the show who kill. You know, selling drugs is one thing. This is just Shane Johnson. This isn't Cooper Saxe, but Shane Johnson thinks, okay, I sold some drugs. I mean, honestly, I used to sell drugs. I mean, but the idea of selling some drugs is obviously it's not right. It's against the law, fine. But killing someone, ending someone's life, and then going about your day and going to school and going to class after killing somebody is crazy to me. And so the fact that he's already at a place where he can catch a body and then go out on a date, I'm like, he's got a way of compartmentalizing that's dangerous, you know, because I don't think it's that he doesn't feel it or that it doesn't mean something to him. I think it's that he goes, okay, that happened, compartmentalize it, move on. You know, and that ability to compartmentalize and just move on is dangerous, because then you get to where you're clinical and you're like, okay, remove these problems and just compartmentalize it, kill them, compartmentalize. You just become, you know, you can become an assassin of sorts quite easily. And so I think he's, you know, James St. Patrick's goal was always to get out. At least it was for the last half of Power. It was like, I want to get out. Tariq doesn't really seem to have that. He's like, I want in.
Yeah.
You know?
Interesting. Yeah, I have to say, this watching the evolution of his character over time, like as a father, it just made me sad. I was like, oh my gosh, man. It makes for good television, but just as a dad, I'm like, oh man, I hate to see a kid like, you know, take that direction in life. But
yeah, and you hope, by the way, that when kids at home watching this, because this has definitely brought in a younger audience, it's hard not to glamorize the shit. You know, as an entertainer, it's hard not to put out there that, oh, look at, this is the life. You get the shoes, you get the girls, you get the money, you get the cars, you get the, you know, all these things from this kind of a life. And that's why I think it's important. You know, one of the things that Courtney puts out is she's like, all these things have consequences. None of these stories, like you notice, none of these stories end well.
Yeah, that's true.
And so Ghost's story was maybe very glamorous, didn't end well. Tommy's story, very glamorous in some respects, money, drugs, women. A lot of his story hasn't ended well. Obviously, he's still continuing his story, but it's actually quite sad that he was escaping New York and he's going and starting a new life. He left New York in ruins. He lost his girl. He lost, you know, He lost his best friend. He lost his family. It's sad.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like consequences, you know. She actually named one of the episodes Consequences. And I think that that's the big lesson from this is, yeah, you can win for a minute doing some shady stuff. You can win maybe for a long minute, and maybe it's fun to watch, maybe it's fun to experience, but ultimately it comes back to bite you, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I want to thank you for your time. This was a great interview. You know, definitely looking forward to seeing the upcoming season, March 17th on Stars.
It's also my wife's birthday.
So happy birthday to
St. Patrick's Day.
Oh, her birthdays must be fun every year.
It is. It's like a big. Everybody celebrates and parties. Everybody's drinking on my wife's birthday, and it's a great day for Power. I mean, it's all at once. It's so much at once for me because I'm like, it's my wife's birthday. It's the premiere of Power. It's St. Patrick's Day. It's like,
yeah, you know, lots to celebrate.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you so much for your time, and wishing you all the best. Not just in this role, but you know, in your ventures beyond. We didn't get to talk about your animation, which I want to talk about, but it's okay for another interview. But yeah, just wishing you all the best, and thank you very much for your time.
You too. Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate it, man.